You're listening to Thinking Design Podcast. Thank you for joining us. Anthony Lopez is the founder of Lopez Design in New Delhi. He specialized in graphic design at NID and is now one of the leading graphic designers in the country. His diverse interests have led him to explore different creative fields, and today we talk to him about the state of design in India. How did Lopez Design start?
To cut a long story short, as soon as I passed out of NID, I was lucky to get my first job offer at Oriole Design, an exhibition design firm in Delhi. In a year's time, three of us friends got together and formed a multidisciplinary design firm. And after 5 years of running this firm together, another friend pulled me into our export business, which was manufacturing home furnishings, where I managed the production, labor, and vendors. 2 years after going nowhere in particular, I felt a strong inner urge to be independent. I started on my own with a clear brief. Whatever you do, do it yourself. If things go wrong, only you are to be blamed. That's how Lopez Design began.
You graduated from NID in which year?
In 1990.
But you have been associated with NID much before that, right?
Oh yes, that's because my father was working at NID as a block maker. And whenever I got a chance, I used to go there since I was a little kid.
How influential was that space for you?
Now, having traveled all over, I can say it was one of the most beautiful and inspiring modern design institutes I have ever seen. And obviously, you're surrounded by young, smart, and talented people, so it always enamored me as a place. I was constantly being influenced by NID, its spaces, its departments, its enormous library, and everything it has.
Any specific teachers you remember who influenced you into the profession you are in now?
From the very start, I was pretty clear that I wanted to do visual communication. But I would credit a lot of influential factors that inspired me into shaping me what I am today. The campus, importantly my peers, my teachers, the library, the NID Film Club where we got to watch a wide range of films, almost one every day. And most importantly, the numerous extracurricular activities through which we almost did everything we dreamt of. Among teachers, each one of them, most importantly Bhandari and MP Ranjan, who laid strong foundations, and a whole lot of great visiting faculty we got from all over the world. I still remember Jan Baker, the lovely book designer from RISD, and Roger Konna, the wondrous super smart architect and professor from Finland who taught us to be free. And among all, supervisors, machine operators from various workshops at NID who allowed me to use their machines even though I was a graphic design student.
We read up a bit about you and found out that you dabbled in furniture design and photography, where you interned with Dalwadi sir, but you eventually ended up becoming a graphic designer. What made you choose that field specifically?
As children, many of us liked doing photography, and I would always volunteer to take a picture or two. And soon enough, I became the official photographer in parties and weddings. And of course, photography books at NID did influence me. The reason I interned with Dalwadi is very different. My father, despite working at NID, discouraged me from joining, as he felt NIDians were up to no good. By the way, NID began much before modern design arrived in the rest of India. It wasn't very well defined. What you could do for a career and job prospects were not that great. Those were difficult times, and having struggled in life, my father discouraged me from picking up design. He pushed me to do engineering instead, because my uncle at that time was a successful engineer with a big pay package and said, "Tu bhi engineer banja." I scored poor marks and got admission in some really mediocre engineering college. That's when my father relented, and by then examination dates had passed. On the brighter side, however, this gave me a chance to start preparing well ahead. That's when I decided to do internship with Dalwadi for a year.
Okay, so this is before NID.
Yeah, this was before NID. And my interest in furniture started even before that, when my father bought a small flat and we were shifting from a one-room everything house into a single-bedroom flat. So we needed more furniture. And since I was already influenced by NID and its books, I started designing furniture to my taste. With the help of local carpenters, it turned out to be pretty good for an amateur designer like me. So when I went to meet Dalwadi for the very first time, he basically said, "I can take you as an intern, but you will have to do everything." So for the first 6 months, he made me clean the office where I had to go and get tea in a kettle from across the street. So when I would cross the road, I would pass by my friends and he would come by motorcycles or scooters and wave out and say, "Hey Tony, kya kar raha hai? Chai wala ban gaya kya? Are you become a tea wala? Oh, that really humbled me. It beat me down to basic levels in life, and I would say, हाँ ठीक है, it's okay, every dog has his day. If anything, these incidents pushed me harder and made me more determined to do my very best to get into NID. It was only after 6 months at Dalwadi I was allowed to work in the dark room. Before that, I would be washing and cleaning prints, learning how to touch up and load films, and much later, towards the end of the year, I was allowed to make prints and use the camera. So, yes, all this gave me a strong foundation to life and approach to design. And in the end, I was reasonably confident when I was applying at NID that I would get in. A very uncanny attitude to have. So, the foundation was at Dalwadi Studio, and I would give a lot of credit to him.
Then what led you towards graphic design?
The visual medium attracted me more. At that time, I felt other fields of design were going nowhere, and it gave me many possibilities and areas to apply myself. Because of this, now looking back, I can say that allowed me to develop strong thinking and articulation skills, simultaneously allowing me to spread my tentacles into wide areas of application. So both my tinkering attitude led our firm to be where we are today, everything design. We have developed considerable experience in being able to design complex problems across different domains. Acting as pivots, we help solve problems better than so-called vertical experts. Attitude of being ambidextrous sows the seed of how your thinking shapes, and that's where the power comes from. And I think basically for me, visual communication becomes one of the founding pillars that help me with thinking, articulation, and translation. In the end, it helped me hone my strategic skills to look at the bigger picture. Does it all make sense now?
Yes, it does. Now that at this point of time in 2018, new design colleges are coming up. And back when you studied design, there was just NID and IDC. So do you think it is going the right way? Because NID is coming from a rich culture of 50 years it took to develop. But the newer design colleges are trying to do that in 1 or 2 years. Do you think it's a good thing? And as you run a studio yourself, you get portfolios for internship and diploma projects. Where do you think the design field is as per the colleges are concerned?
Our field is very insular. It's very important to look at the need of design today. India is an extremely vast country, and Balram spoke about it today in the morning. So we are about 1.3 billion people with complex problems, plus we are extremely vast and a diverse country. We therefore need that many designers to design for the needs of all these billion people. We all know about Swachh Bharat, right? And I use this as an example. I feel very strongly about how policies and decisions are taken in context to our geographical vastness, our diverse languages, cultures, which makes us a very complex nation. We're actually many nations put together, so a Tamilian is different from a North Indian, or a Punjabi, or a Bengali. We're different in many other ways. Problems in one village or district are different from another. So how can you solve a problem of open defecation by just building one type of toilet and mind you, just toilets? To me, this is a classic complex problem and it needs many different solutions. Therefore, we need many designers or problem solvers across vast domains to solve problems at local level. Now, on the other hand, look at China with a population of 1.42 billion with 350 design schools, which is a huge number, while we have got only 30 to 40 design schools. So we have a parity issue now, while we need to have more and more people dabbling in the field of design. Now look at the number of engineers coming out of India every year, 1.5 million. That huge figures, we are over-engineered. What you're implying is the quality of education at these design institutes, right? Well, it has always been a suspect across the entire education spectrum. You could have the good and not so good, and the gullible gets shortchanged. Even while we are at NID, people before us used to say, during our time it used to be great. I tell the kids the same. I think if you have a great environment, you get a great learning experience. It's the institute's responsibility to create one. NID currently takes a huge number of students, 100 plus, compared to during our times when only 30 students were taken across all disciplines. Consequently, we landed up with a small number of people in each discipline. The faculty-student ratio was 1:1. Learnings in this case were very different than conventional classrooms. The attention and interactions were more intense, which made you much richer. I think it's still the same in DJ, which is fantastic. But the important thing would be to get people who can be stimulants. So, faculty, visiting faculty, guest lecturers, essentially people who can be great mentors and motivators. Design schools require to create lab like conditions and simulated students besides teaching skills.
Looking back at your time at NID and interactions with the young designers today, what do you think has changed?
Time. The times have changed and changed drastically. It's the pace of which everything happens now. The simple analogy of how the world progressed. So, when any innovation happened in the older times, there would be a whole set of many generations that would live with that innovation. Okay? So, when we learned how to make fire a million years ago, we lived with that fire for thousands of years and more. The wheel came in, the Industrial Revolution, and so on. But with each innovation, it brought about significant changes economic, social, cultural. Let's take the example of the telephone. So, when my father and my grandfather lived with a twinkling telephone for almost their whole life, there was very little beyond that in terms of communication technology, right?
Yeah,
So, now switch over a generation in which I was born, where I have seen this huge body of transformation happening in my one lifetime. The impact which it has had on society is huge. We can agree that everything is changing, and the term change is constant applies very much these days. So, the way design has been taught to us during my student days and the way design needs to be taught today needs to change. And it needs to change drastically because the mind has to adapt to the implications of the high frequency of innovation. We have seen just how invention of the mobile has impacted everything we do, how we think, we behave, everything is connected today. While we are consuming this, we are already beginning to see AI, machine learning, big data, and blockchain network bring about a totally new paradigm shift. All this is going to have a massive impact in the ways we cannot fathom. Earlier, we could do deep research on impact of a certain technology, write books. Today, everyone is grappling with what could be the possible outcomes. And by the time one figures out a bit, it's moving again. That's why you will see sharp differences between two generations these days. And the generation gaps are getting compressed. So, how do you prepare yourself as a person, as a thinker, as a designer to comprehend and deliver this transient space? What will be the outcome of this? How will you train yourself to understand and apply in this constantly moving and changing context? It's quite challenging. So, the amount of total knowledge you need to acquire, the speed of acquisition of knowledge needs to be extremely high. You'll have to be hungry like nobody's business. Forget curiosity. So, when Balram speaks about curiosity, we speak about how we need to be bloody hungry. Otherwise, there's very little relevance. You are in some fool's paradise.
who are the people who inspired you or still inspire you?
I largely get inspired by these challenging situations that the future is uncertain and you do not know what to do. Yet you need to have solutions for yourself and others. I can't find a more exciting time to be in, and more so to be born in this conundrum. I've seen the 60s and the 70s, and I am seeing today what a massive transformation. This is an inspiration for me. There is so much happening, giving you so much more opportunities. Anything you touch can turn into gold. Isn't that amazing? Depending on who you are and what you do, being a sponge and a blank slate at the same time is very important. Time is very limited. We need to learn how to be agile and maximize every given moment. Your task as a young person is to be hungry, to get the best out of any situation. So if you're sitting with Balram, then you should get all the juice out of him, squeeze him out of all he has, and he'll be most happy. And this is possible by not being just a listener, but by poking at him and being a participant in a dialogue on equal terms. As in today's context, both of your knowledges are limited. And mind you, you need to build yourself into a position of questioning and challenging because I feel there is no how to do it formula any longer.
What advice would you give to students who want to eventually start their own practice?
I spoke about it briefly today at my presentation. Self-belief.
Self belief.
Yes, self-belief. You got to believe in yourself. And at the other end, you should be willing to fail and fall. If you ask me why I started my own business, why not work for somebody else, I do not know the logic. My family would not have been able to support me if I was down on the streets. There was some idiocy in me. It made me think, karte hain kya? And this I can attribute to self-belief. The other aspect is ambition, which is very critical for every person. You have to be tremendously ambitious and driven. And that does not mean you need to earn $1 million or buy a 7 Series. That's a wrong definition of ambition. Ambition hota hai kuch karke dikhao. People associate it with money, and that is what people see it translate into. But I think ambition should be about producing good and credible work, about fulfillment. The byproduct of good work is making money, recognition, and respect. And this is not difficult because there is so much to do. We are here in India, not in Europe or US, where things have been done 100 times over. So, irrespective of whether you do business or work for somebody, there are tremendous opportunities in our country. The last and most important, which people give least value to today, is a strong value system. Your self belief and ambition should be based on values. You should never try and compromise on these. So, if you think you should go ahead and start your own business, go ahead, start it. If you fail, do something else. This is my third business. Two didn't work out for me. So, should you fail, there are a lot of learning from it, and there's always another chance.
And risk taking attitude is what I feel everybody's scared of at this point.
Yeah, but there is no harm in working for a design firm or an organization too, and being a catalyst there or an influencer there and empowering yourself through those firms and the platform they could offer you. Learn at their cost. It's very important to see yourself different and unique for who you are. As human beings, we are all born differently. That's what I say. We are aware about differently abled people, but each one of us are differently able to begin with. Thereby, you are your best judge. So do what is right for you. If you fail, learn and be forgiving. You can try again or do something else because that's what life has to offer you.
What advice would you give to a young design graduate?
Work hard, extremely hard. When our parents told us to work hard, it used to be like hard matlab pain. But that's not the thing. Hard is basically passion, along with very tall aims, your own personal aims and goals. Relentless pursuit to produce good work in whatever you do. Today, it's very easy to benchmark your work. It is important to be true to yourself and work towards it. It's a fantastic quality to have. We give up too soon, or we come up with excuses, knowing very well that all along we have not tried hard enough, and rightly so. It is important to surround yourself with good peers, pushing them to invest time in giving you true criticism, challenge you to add value, opening you up to new possibilities. It is these sessions that your blind spots surface, literally making you blink. Do not expect to become great overnight. It takes time. Most people have achieved greatness over a long time with relentless pursuit and practice. Simply put, why do you need to practice drawing? Or even more simpler, why do you have to learn a language and use it every day to be able to make it your second skin? Language is extremely complex, but you are at perfect ease. Yesterday I was speaking about this book Bounce, The Myth of Talent and the Power of Practice. And even Malcolm Gladwell speaks about it in his book The Outliers, where he talks about you have to put in about 10,000 hours of practice to become a world class. Now that's roughly 2 hours per day over 10 years. Now is that very doable? Right. Now if you look at my early argument, do you have 10 years to become world class? So the contradiction is that because today's world is fluid, how will you gain 10,000 hours of practice in any given field? We are also ambidextrous as designers. We can do a lot of things. That's a challenge. So I say, okay, it's not the craft or the skill, but I can train myself in the thinking and I can train myself to be flexible in my thinking, to be fluid, to be adaptive. Can I make it a language of my being? Can I make it a craft? That's what we are trying to do as a studio, thinking and applying ourselves in many directions and dimensions. I'll give an example where we did a brand strategy for this firm, which we helped articulate all aspects of the brand, its purpose, its character, its voice, and so on. We designed its identity true to itself in its time, importantly capable of adapting itself to time. We are currently working on their deep and complex web projects, which are responsive apps across Android and iOS. This includes developing total information architecture and user experience, including content and visual language. We are now talking about service design and experience design and interior design. We are also discussing how we can be involved in working with other vertical experts as cohesive team. I think that's a wonderful position and an opportunity to be as a designer. It helps us hone finesse of our approach, knowing that holistic skills help define what is right in context to what you're delivering across the full spectrum. The challenge is to do it sharply and in context and to be adaptive. That's how you stay nimble. Tomorrow things can become fluid for you, so you need not be afraid of taking up new and open-ended exercises. One of the problems we are facing in this generation is anxiety of not knowing how to do many things. There was a time when it was just about knowing things. There was this book called Information Anxiety by Saul Berman in the 80s, where he speaks about the gap of what we understand and what we think we should understand. He interestingly speaks about learning how to pick up what you need to learn, how we need to process this in more simplistic and holistic ways. This is relevant even today in a different context with regards to our own multidimensional and device dependent world. Now we have big data and complex UI and UX situations. And to add to that, AI and machine learning. The question is, are we comprehending? Are we willing to grapple it, embrace it, and apply it? The simple answer to all this is how to be empathetic across everything you do with the tools you have. Well, craft could take a different meaning. Today, despite everything I spoke about, we definitely do not have the answers to a lot of things, but we are developing some sense of it, and that's interesting and exciting.
We will end with one last thing, book recommendations.
First of all, I think whatever basic books as far as learning design is concerned, most of them are in your library. I think for a designer to grow up, you have to read everything. It always begins with your interest from there on and push yourself in all other areas possible. What I mean, reading non-fiction. I have this saying, it is your some knowledge that shapes you. It is the application that defines you. Of all the knowledge you need to acquire, the most important of all is social sciences. I think you ought to be really good at trying to acquire as much well rounded knowledge in this area. Knowing how human beings think and behave and act. It is one of the least understood sciences, more so in today's context. Be as soaked in society. Balram talks about taking you all for environment exposures. That needs to be a lifelong, continuous exercise. So, as far as books are concerned, I can send you a list of books. You'll have to ask for it again. I think a wide range of books are extremely important for designers because our field, just by definition, is not narrow. So, you need to be this massive thinker man, thinker person. Once again, reading basically is a must for every designer. Hunger to know more is most important. Let me quote a billionaire, Warren Buffett of Wall Street. Loosely though, he says, read 500 pages every day. That's how knowledge works. It builds up like compound interest. Now, if that's what makes Warren Buffett, what about you? You could either be great in a single skill and be happy about it, or you could take a larger perspective to solving so-called complex problems in different tangential ways. Today, our ambidextrous studio can do that to some extent. I think if you build yourself in this manner, we will do fine in this fluid state. You should be ambitious from this perspective. That search for knowledge is something that you should ingrain within yourself. That's a fantastic quality to have. You are no longer stagnated because in today's world, it does not allow you to be stagnated. Adapt or die. Like my father was one of the best block makers in the country. In his very lifetime, block making became redundant. Now he spent a lifetime doing that. Lucky he retired with it. So again, I'm coming back to the same thing. Certain skills which are acquired by you will be redundant and no longer required. As they say, devices are going to be redundant now. You are no longer going to require a cell phone or a device. Where is UI and UX going to go? We no longer need it. We need something else. So technology has moved far away ahead on an industrial level, and the best innovations happen for warfare. Billions of dollars for national security. But it eventually trickles down to us, to our normal lives. Again, things are changing. Look at Elon Musk. It's his dream coming true. The trickle down is parallel now, unless it's a conspiracy theory. Take example of self-driving vehicles. They will come anytime now, and you will no longer require drivers. A whole massive employment scope is killed, and in a few years it will go away. So will AI and blockchain technology. These massive shifts will come and it will continue to happen more rapidly. So what role will you play? What are you going to do today that will last your lifetime? To be called an expert at the end of it. So that's what is challenging. And that's what is beautiful about today's time, which is constantly creating itself into newness. You have to embrace uncertainty like nobody else, to be one with it. This is going to happen more in your lifetime than mine. Symbol design exists for a long time, but are you examining what shape it will take? What shape it is not taking, despite the fact that some aspects of it and its application have become redundant? I will survive with the span of time I have left. I have made some name for myself. I am trying to keep myself and the firm agile. We are doing interesting and complex projects. In many, I am not the expert, but I am a part of the team and lead in others. I will tell you a secret. Are we 100% capable of the projects we take up? The answer is no. But in today's world, who is? With our qualities, we are still the best bet in many cases. We deliver.
So at the end, it's about collaboration.
Yes, but it is also about opening yourself up and making yourself capable to collaborate. It's an important tool and a skill to acquire that I can work with people, that I cannot work in isolation. First of all, it's an important thing to acknowledge in our field that I am not God. I am not the creator. Design is not the creator. We bring things together for better. But we could give a lot of credit to ourselves, to being wise people. That's what design schools should do. They instill the wisdom in you. Are you building yourself to be Yoda? If so, may the force be with you. Go read our manifesto on our website, and all this may make sense. Thank you for having me here at DJ Academy. It feels very good to be on your campus. Like I told you last time, I'm here because two of your alumni are part of our team. I'm reasonably impressed by them. We are typically searching for the right kind of people. Many a time, we are wrong about our choices, but eventually we get people who put in 100%. As I say, ordinary people doing extraordinary work. We look forward to seeing more of you.
Thank you. We are glad to have a professional address some questions we design students often raise. It was great talking to you.
Thank you.
With this, we come to the end of the second episode. You can follow us on Instagram at thinkingdesign.india for updates and sneak peeks of upcoming episodes. Thank you for listening.